Now, you may recall that last season we sampled the Brutale 1090R. And from a distance, you may find yourself saying, what's the diff besides the extra R painted on the bodywork? Well, once you stop drooling over the Double R's hand-welded frame, you start to notice the subtle differences between the Double R and its R-rated sibling. For instance, everything is slightly more in the Double R land. Like Nigel Huffnell's Marshall amp, all the dials go up to 11. The radial-mounted monoblock Brembo brakes, the 10-spoke forged aluminum wheels, the tranny slipper clutch, and so too all the extreme suspension bits, more adjustment options, including a steering damper. Internally, higher lift cams, shorter intake runs, and a revised engine map pushes the power band skyward, with the Double R's sound following suit. This is the Hulk of naked bikes, but you don't have to take my word for it. Here's longtime viewer Eric Heidendahl with his full-on impression.
Eric, not since the days of way back when we first tested a Bimota has any motorcycle garnered so many comments and discussion. What was your first impression when you saw this bike?
My first impression was that it was all motor with a couple of wheels stuck on it. So obviously they went after the naked bike thing, but it just looks so chunky because it's all motor.
Yeah, but it's not that big.
It isn't that big, and it's not that heavy. It's just over 400 pounds.
Yeah. Now, you said it's all motor, and what a motor.
Oh, what a motor. It is stunning. That's the only way to put it, I think. Just what do the Italians say? Molto bene.
Right, right. How would you describe this engine other than snarly and nasty? Like, what's it like when you fire it up?
Well, I didn't find it really too snarly and nasty, although it has a really nice exhaust note to it, but it has so much torque and so much horsepower that gears are kind of irrelevant. Doesn't matter what gear you're in, if you crank the throttle, you're going.
Right.
Which is it's a wonderful thing. Now, there is a bit of throttle lag, but beyond that, it's a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful thing. There's no displacement or replacement for displacement. That's right.
Exactly.
What's the riding experience like? Does it feel smooth, lumpy? Just what is the elemental feeling?
I'd say it's firm. The ride is firm, and intentionally so, but it handles very, very well. So it gives you lots of confidence. If you're going into a corner, you just feel like you can throw it over and perhaps even scrape the pegs if you wanted to.
So what about when you crack the throttle? I mean, what is that experience like when you've got that much horsepower and torque?
Well, you really are just hanging on for dear life.
Really?
Yeah. And they have, the gearbox is such a short throw that you can change gears quickly. Yeah. Although it's hard to get an exceptionally smooth shift out of it because there's a bit of throttle lag in the fly-by-wire.
Right.
But otherwise, it's quite an experience.
We know this thing hauls. What about hauling it down from speed? What did you think of those brakes?
Well, that's the other really nice part of it is the brakes are outstanding. Double discs in the front and single in the back with multiple pistons. It just stops in a hurry.
Now, in keeping with this motorcycle, we got a big beefy fork up front and we've got a nice monoshock out back. How did you just find the handling itself? We went over some very bumpy roads today.
We did, and it was firm, but it handled the bumps very well.
Yeah.
And again, inspired great confidence that I could do just about anything with it.
One of the first things you noticed about that fork was this adjustable rake.
Right. So we didn't get a chance to adjust that, but I assumed that if you rake it out a bit, it'd be more comfortable on a cruising effort.
And then you can shorten it back in for the track.
Right. But honestly, I don't think you're going to be doing a lot of cruising on this motorcycle. This will inspire you to find ways to go to the drugstore for something, because it really is the ultimate cafe racer, isn't it?
It certainly is a lot of fun. What did you think of the riding position? Because the pegs are fairly close to that saddle and you do have long legs.
Yep.
The reach to the bar is a bit of a reach. So what was the riding position like?
Well, the riding position is very upright, and actually I didn't have a problem with it. I really liked that position. However, as you said, and I tend to be longer in the torso than I am in the legs. So the one big problem I had was I couldn't see a thing out of the mirrors, and there was no way to adjust them up.
Right.
So they became just about useless.
What do you think of the fit and finish of the bike?
Oh, the fit and finish is also superb. It's that glorious Italian red, and it's cap nut screws everywhere. It's beautifully done, really is nicely put together.
So Eric, you were kind of hanging out there in the breeze, but you do have this little information pod. How did you find that as far as being able to read everything and access the information you needed?
It was quite readable. There isn't a lot of information there to be had. Mostly you're looking for the speed that you're going at and reading the tack so you know when to shift. So it's usable, but it's not overwhelming. Everything is where I expected it to be. There's a nice adjustment for the headlight as well, which is that's a nice feature. If you were to drop the saddle height a little bit, for instance, you could adjust the headlamp to accommodate.
What's the one lasting impression that will continue to put a smile on your face for the remainder of the weekend?
Horsepower.
Yeah.
It just has gobs of horsepower and torque in every gear, which is a wonderful thing.
Who will appreciate owning a bike like this? Who would you recommend this to?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say somebody that has some experience on the track perhaps, and they want a high performance motorcycle, and they're not looking to do a lot of touring, but they really want to carve some corners. And perhaps they know a little bit about Agostini.
That helps.
And his 15 championships in a row.
Helps. Now, what kind of motorcycle do you own right now?
I have a Kawasaki KZ750, an L4, which is a 1984 motorcycle.
And back in 1984, that would probably be a pretty powerful naked bike.
It was, yeah.
So could this perhaps replace what you have in the garage right now?
It certainly could if I had the money to buy one of these.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, David. It's been a great experience.
You did a good job. Thanks.
Cheers.